welcome back to episode 2 of Work Sucks and Then You Die Because Life is Too Short for Bad Jobs. Work Sucks and Then You Die is a podcast about navigating bad jobs and toxic workplace culture. We share relatable stories, expert insights, empowering strategies, and inspirational journeys to help people find better work situations and also to help you understand what you don't want. It also aims to we also aim to shred the resume for good and match people with compatible companies so that you don't have to worry about bad jobs or toxic workplaces, that you're aligned, your values are aligned, your skills are aligned to a company that is looking for exactly what you have to offer, both from a values perspective and a skills perspective. Today, we're talking about catfishing in the startup space. You might have heard it called vaporware, fake it till you make it mentality, overstating your confidence. I don't know, Katie, what else could we call it?
I don't know. Evil?
Evil, pure
Evil?
evil. Lie till
Um,
you die, lie till you die.
yeah, some of these, stories we'll share are definitely I don't know. I feel like there's obviously, like, a scale, and there's not everything's black and white, but
Yeah,
some of the stories we'll talk about today just really some of them really toe that fine line between, having confidence and just lying through your butt.
yeah, and being ethical. And I'm really proud about how we're doing things at DNA because we're doing things in a very authentic and truthful way. And if, that we're not gonna overstate our offering, we're not gonna overstate our user count or our revenue. Like, I'm really grounded in being authentic and honest, and I think that's really important. You said something to me as we were talking prior to jumping on the recording about I said some of these people are overconfident and you had a good point. What was that point, Katie?
Yeah, I think overconfident, maybe, but, what I view confidence as is, having faith in your abilities, knowing, what you've previously been able to do or, you know, what you believe that you're able to do going in the future. That's true confidence. I think where some of these at this level are false confidence and a little bit delusion. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think a little delusional, and I do think sometimes you in life you have to be slightly delusional when it
Yeah,
comes to dreaming and hoping and
thinking
planning,
big. Yeah,
being ambitious, but you should still be rooted in reality, and yeah, I
yeah,
just
I agree with you. There's just a fine balance, right? Like there's that line where you toe with ethics if you're overconfident, and I think the importance of being grounded in your mission and being an ethical company are equally important.
yeah.
And I think you can be a visionary and be excited about the vision of your company without being unethical. And I think what we've seen in some of the stories we're going to share today is that it's almost like these people got in over their heads, and so they just kinda kept going versus having the courage or, like, the real confidence to stop and say, like, "Hold up. Like, this actually is not working." In the tech space, it takes a lot more courage to stop something and shut something down and say this is a failure than it does to, I think, continue on and try to force it into a success, which actually is not possible. But yeah, trying to force things to be successful versus, stopping it at some point and saying, hey, you know what? This isn't going to work. This idea is no longer valid, or we're no longer solving a problem for somebody, or the product that we built can't work the way that we hoped it was going to work. I think there's just a lot more to be said about having the courage and the confidence to do that versus continuing down a path when you know in your gut it's not going to work, you know?
Yeah, and I think you're right, and I think some of these people put themselves in or get whether on purpose or by accident, get themselves into these situations where they have so much invested in it,
Mhm.
other people have so much invested in it, whether it's, like, financially or otherwise, that they get to this point where they're, like, so far in that they only feel the only way out I think they feel is through.
Yes.
And then they keep on creating larger mess for themselves because they keep on putting time, money, and energy into something that's not working or sometimes that doesn't even exist.
Yeah, or sometimes it doesn't. It's an idea. They're putting their efforts into an idea, which is wild to me. I was at Pathways of Silicon Valley, which was an excellent program, by the way. Shout out to Joanne. And we met some mentors and some VC investors there. And I met a woman who is a prof at UC Berkeley. She's a product expert. She's exited a company, built and exited a company herself. And she was sharing with me that she got tapped on the shoulder or called to help a company. I think it was either in Sweden or Switzerland. It was somewhere not in Canada, not in North America, to help them build their pitch deck for their product or their product idea. It was an idea. There was no product built yet. There was no technology built, nothing. And she helped them build, they paid her to help build the pitch deck. So she helped, and they ended up raising over $100 million off the pitch deck alone without a product, she told me. And I don't know that they have a product yet.
Well,
That's wild to me.
it is wild. I'm someone who's just like, ideas are great, but they mean absolutely nothing if you can't execute them, right? So
Agreed.
it's amazing to have a great idea, but is it $100 million worth of an idea? I don't know because you're still attributing that idea to whoever presented the idea. Are they able to execute? Are they even able to build it? Is it even technically possible to build that prototype or technology or platform or whatever it is?
Yeah.
Um, that's just insane to me.
I know, it was wild. I like, my jaw was on the floor. I was like, "Can you build me a pitch deck? How much do you cost to hire?" Like, probably a lot.
You
Um,
don't just have an idea.
oh, yeah, we actually have a product with users. I wanna talk about first, I think I wanna jump into Thera Theranos, which is the show The Dropout.
Yeah.
So, you've watched it, I've watched it. Maybe can you give the audience, like, a short form version of what's it about? And
Yeah,
yeah.
so I think her name is Elizabeth Holmes, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So, I haven't watched it recently, and so I watched it last year, so if I'm off on any details, that's why.
Hey,
Essentially, she went to, I think it was Stanford or Berkeley,
Stanford, you're right. Yeah.
and I think this was, like, post, Apple and all of these tech companies where the founders were basically like Facebook. They were college dropouts because, they created this idea while they were at post-secondary, and rather than complete their post-secondary education, they decided to drop out and pursue that. So, she was someone who's quite smart, had a really good idea,
Mhm.
and very much aspired to be like these founders who dropped out of university, like, at least from, like, this show. It seemed very important to her that she didn't complete college. Like, college was
Yes,
just a stepping stone to, like, help her meet the right people to achieve dropping out and starting this business, right?
yeah, it was almost like a badge of honor, and so her idea was, this company called Theranos, I think that's how you say it. Theranos, and she claimed to revolutionize blood testing with technology that could perform extensive tests just using a drop of blood. And the machine, I think she called it the Edison. And the company attracted over 700 million in investments without even ever proving that this worked.
Yeah,
700 million in investments, reaching a valuation of $9 billion. So they reached a valuation of $9 billion, raised $700 million. And actually, I remember watching the show, and there was a part in the show where she was meeting with investors, and I think some of her employees were like, "We need to demo the technology to them." And she was like, "No, we can't. Like, it doesn't work, or it's
mhm,
not there yet." She never would, like, come out and say it didn't work. She just kinda kept saying, like, "It's not ready yet, it's not ready yet, it's not ready yet." And somehow, because of her passion and I think her smarts and like you said, her comparing herself to these other dropouts. She was going to Stanford. She was able to raise $700 million in investments without even proving that the technology she said she built was built and worked.
Yeah, and she also what's the word I'm looking for? She also used cancer patients to test her prototype knowing that it didn't work.
I forgot about that part. That's
Yeah.
wild. Yeah.
So that's a really interesting point for, like, the ethics of it all. Like, it's one thing to, I mean, lie to VCs and
Yeah.
multimillionaires who invest money for a living. Not that I think it's okay to lie to anyone, but that's much different than lying to them, to cancer patients, being like, "Hey, we're gonna put you through a blood test," even though I know for a fact it's not gonna work.
Exactly. Yeah, I think the misleading the patients, especially, patients that are going through what they're going through is the saddest part of that whole story.
Mhm.
And she had a president of her company, Ramesh Balwani. His name, they call him Sunny on the show. I think maybe they call his name is Sunny. They both faced criminal charges, which led to the dissolution of the company. And I'm not sure where they're at now. Like, I don't know if they're in jail or
I don't know either. A quick Google.
yeah, I mean, it was
Elizabeth Holmes, prison? I think she is in prison. She's in prison until 2032.
wow.
But, I mean, obviously, it's heartbreaking to hear anyone mislead, the average person, especially someone who's ill with cancer or any other illness, like, offering false promises or grifting on them.
Mhm.
That's one level. I do understand that it's unethical to lie to investors, but at the same point, I'm like, also shame on them
Mhm.
for, like, this is their career. They invest in companies. They're grown people who decided to invest hundreds of millions of dollars into a person or idea or whatever technology wasn't working without any proof,
Yes, no due diligence.
no diligence. So I understand that, like, that's unethical, but the amount of outrage from that party is also a little bit misplaced because it's also a shame on them moment as well.
Yeah, and I think obviously things have changed a lot since then, like, the amount of due diligence that investors do is substantial. I think especially in the Canadian landscape, I'm not as familiar with the American landscape, and I do think there's probably more money in the American landscape to invest than there is in the Canadian landscape from a VC perspective. The other thing that really bugged me about that is, like, she gave women a bad name.
Yeah,
Like, come on, it's already hard enough for us compared to men to raise funds, and now, like, are women overly scrutinized because she was extra tricky, you know?
I don't know. I mean, there's that whole trend on social media making fun of, like, it's like hashtag women in male fields where it's like teasing about, like, women, I don't know, like, doing stuff like this where it's like we're we're breaking through the glass ceiling by, like, participating in these activities that men do, but we get so much more flack for it than, like, the
Oh, I
average.
didn't know that. Really?
Yeah.
There's a trend on social right now?
Yeah, it's kind of poking fun at it, like, everything from, like, dating to be like, "Oh, I'm gonna, like, tell this person I want them to meet my family, and then I ghost them." It's like women in male fields, and it's, like, everything from, like, joking, dating stuff to, like, talking about, like, corporate types of, occurrences that happen that are, like, male dominated, and it's just poking fun at, like, the double standard of
Yeah,
these
yeah,
actions.
yeah,
Um, but, yeah, I agree, it's tricky because, it's hard enough as a female founder, I think, to have legitimacy in this space, and then
Mhm.
to have something like this happen at such a large level,
Mhm.
really does not help the cause.
No, for sure. I'm gonna have to look into this trend. That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Or is it funny? I don't know.
Some of it
Uh,
is funny.
yeah, okay. Okay.
I'll send you
Okay. Yeah, and last night I was watching the news and they were interviewing somebody who's involved with Fyre Festival 2.0, which they're actually planning and they're actually selling tickets for. And on the interview last night, the journalist asked this guy if they had any of the musicians lined up for the festival, and he was like, "Not that I know of, no, but that's not my area of planning." But they're already selling tickets.
Why would you sell like, yeah, like, okay.
That's
Well, I mean, I'm sure Ja Rule is not gonna be attending Fyre Festival too, because that
well,
did not work out for him the first time, but, like, why would anyone buy a ticket to a music festival when there's, like, no headliners listed?
I don't know. So,
Alone
I mean
Fyre Festival too with the worst track record ever.
right? So for our listeners, for those of you who don't know, the Fyre Festival was a fraudulent luxury music festival planned by entrepreneur Billy McFarland and rapper Ja Rule in 2017. Ja Rule is going to be in Calgary right away with Nelly. He's playing this year in Calgary with Nelly. Marketed as an exclusive high-end event on a private island in the Bahamas, it was promoted by top influencers like Kendall Jenner, Bella Hadid, with promises of luxury accommodations, gourmet food, and performances by major artists. However, when attendees arrived, they found a disaster. You should watch this on Netflix. It's wild. It's like basically like a camping in the desert, is what I would say it looked like.
Yeah,
No, yeah.
these luxury accommodations were just, like, almost like a refugee camp setup
Yes.
with, like, and people spent thousands of dollars to be there, so I think that's just such a good example of, like, this Billy's his name?
Yes, Billy McFarland.
Great concept, great idea,
Yeah.
was not able to execute on time
Yes,
or maybe at all.
at all.
We'll see what the second one's like, and rather than just, like, admitting that it wasn't gonna work, he's like, "I don't care how this affects other people, this is gonna happen."
Totally. Well, so why do you think like, what's the psychology? I know you're not a psychologist, but what's the psychology? And neither am I, but I'm curious to, like, unpack this. The psychology behind admitting you made a mistake
Yeah.
versus, like, continuing on because when you think of the Fire Festival, they had no musical acts, no luxury villas, just those FEMA disaster tents. It almost looked like the Dragon Boat Festival, the tents that they have set up for, like, a one-day event like that kinda thing. Instead of gourmet meals, they were served cheese sandwiches in styrofoam containers, and the festival collapsed in chaos with stranded guests scrambling to leave. So people actually showed up. Like, what goes through your mind knowing that people are going to show up and you've catfished them? Like, you haven't delivered what you said you were delivered or what they're paying for. How do you get to that point? I don't know.
You're
What are your
also
thoughts?
having them show up, it's not like they're showing up to a major city in North America, they're on an island. Like,
Yes.
so you're making them show up to a very desolate place or, like, very remote place, fully knowing that you don't have anything that they paid for or need. Like, I don't even think there was functional washrooms,
No.
and then they're stranded.
Yeah, and then they can't leave. Then they wanna leave immediately, but they can't because their flights are booked for when the festival is over. There's no accommodations. You have a Cheese Whiz sandwich, you know? I don't know, just as a founder myself and as an entrepreneur, like, I just could never let it get to that state. Like, how do you what's the psychology behind letting something get to that state? Like, what do you think is going through their heads?
I think there's, like, different ways that it happens. I think one is, like, there's people who are compulsive liars that, like, continue like, the more they lie, the more they believe
Yeah.
their lies, and I don't think they're able to, like, root themselves in reality. I think there's also probably people who just, like, don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, I don't wanna label anyone as that, but I think that's definitely a reality.
Yeah.
Um, and then I think there's people who are more motivated by money than they are by actually providing a solution, a product, a technology, an experience, like Fyre Festival. Like, that Billy guy also, I don't believe had any real repercussions for
Yeah, I don't know if he was charged or anything.
I think there were
Oh,
some.
yeah, he was. Yeah, he was convicted of fraud and sentenced to 6 years in prison and ordered to repay the $26 million to defrauded investors.
Mhm.
His which he probably made more than that off of his Netflix series. He's out of jail now, and despite this fiasco, Billy announced that Fyre Festival 2.0 for 2024, which obviously that didn't happen, claiming it will be legendary this time. When I think about, like, the psychology, I think you touched on a few things that are really important there. You talked about delusion earlier, like, I think there's a lot of delusion behind this. I think that it's like, if I just keep pushing forward, things will fall into place, and it's almost like you don't have enough self-awareness to know where that cutoff actually is, and so you just keep going.
Yeah, it's like not knowing when to quit. I mean, quitting already has, like, such a negative connotation, but, like,
Yeah,
sometimes quitting is, like, the smartest thing you can do.
exactly. Yeah, and then there's the sunk cost fallacy as well. So as problems piled up, admitting to failure meant losing everything, which is your reputation, investors, and future business prospects. But you're going to lose all of that anyways if you keep going. And I actually think you might maintain some of your reputation if you don't let it go all the way.
Mhm.
Like, it's going to be bad either way, but I actually think it's worse if you let it go. It's like this, yeah, I've come this far, I can't quit now mentality. There's something called fraud escalation rationalization. So he obviously exaggerated reality, like claiming the big acts were booked when they weren't, claiming the luxury accommodations were going to be there when they weren't. As things fell apart, small lies turned into bigger ones. And then he likely convinced himself it was temporary deception, not fraud. This is wild to me.
Yeah, and I think too, like, I think greed also comes into play there. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, it's not uncommon for like, a concert or whatever to get canceled or rescheduled, and in those moments, people's tickets get deferred or, like, they get reimbursed. So, that's not like that wasn't an option for him at any point to just say, "Oh, crap, like, this is not gonna work out.
Mhm.
Can't go ahead with this right now. I can delay it, or, I can refund people's tickets." But I think maybe where the the refunding wasn't an option is probably that money was already spent elsewhere
Yeah,
and
yeah,
on himself. So,
yeah, yeah, anyways, I mean, I think it wasn't just a scam, it was like this slow motion psychological breakdown of a founder trapped in his own ambition, and I think it requires, as a founder, a lot of self-awareness, and, like, you have to ask yourself that every single day, you know?
I'm gonna have a kind of, like, a competing idea. Is he a founder or is he a con artist?
That's a good question. I mean, I
Because I
think
think
you
there's 2 different
yeah,
types of profiles. There are founders who find themselves in that predicament and things get out of hand and whatever, but then there are people who are, like, doing Ponzi schemes or
yes,
doing,
yes.
like, whatever you wanna call it. So, what is the difference between a founder that fails or gets out of hand versus a con artist?
Yeah, I actually don't think he deserves to be called a founder.
Yeah. I'm like,
Like,
might be a little generous.
yeah, that might be a bit generous, you're right, that's an important question. I think he definitely is a con artist, especially if he's gonna do it again, like, he's that delulu, he's that delusional that he's gonna try this again?
I just think I don't know what his, like, current financial status is, but you think there'd be some shame attached to, like, "I did this, I went to jail for it,
And now I'm gonna do it again.
now I'm gonna do it again." Like, I personally wouldn't, like, go back to being associated with Fyre Festival. I think I would try to, like, find something else to do in life
Yes.
and do that and hopefully be successful at it, and hopefully no one refers to me as the Fyre Festival guy.
Yeah, I mean, uh, I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see what unfolds. I'm curious to see. I almost wanna buy a ticket so I can go and see what maybe that's his play. Maybe he's like, "Well, people are all gonna wanna know now if this is gonna be successful or not. They're gonna buy tickets so they can be part of the hype of the Fyre Festival."
Yeah, but I guess
No, I don't wanna buy a ticket. I'm just
no.
kidding.
Because also too, like, the people who bought tickets the first round, I wonder if any of them made up their money. I know there's probably some lawsuits, but, like, that
For
doesn't
sure.
necessarily mean they've all been paid.
Yeah, for sure. They probably haven't. Okay, let's talk about one more. Let's talk about apple cider vinegar.
Did you finish it on the weekend?
I haven't finished it all. I'm close to being done. So maybe talk a little bit about this one.
Yeah, it's interesting. This one's interesting because obviously there's some, like, a founder aspect to it, definitely, and then there's also a con artist aspect. So I think this is, like, a really interesting one to leave off on because I think Elizabeth Holmes was kind of fell into that founder gone wrong category. Billy is most likely in that con
Yeah.
category.
Yes.
And I think Mel Gibson is a both,
Mm.
honestly.
Mel Gibson, Bell or Bell.
Mel Gibson,
I
sorry,
know, actually,
not
the
Mel.
second I saw Belle Gibson, I was like, "I wonder if she's related to Mel Gibson."
No, I'm sure she's probably told someone that at some point
Yes,
in her life,
probably.
knowing her track record with lies, but so yeah, Belle Gibson is an Australian founder of the Whole Pantry. So she built this app or was a part of building this app called the Whole Pantry. It was one of the first apps that I believe Apple included on their watch when the watch came out. So like
Yes.
2016-ish era. Um, but yeah, the app was built, she had a cookbook that was published, and all of this was promoted under the message that she had brain cancer and that she was able to delay/cure her brain cancer with the use of holistic ingredients, like eating well, whatever diet that she was under, I can't remember what it was, but, like, basically, you can heal yourself with the food that you eat, and there were also, kind of other thoughts and a lot of promotion of this on social media, like, Instagram just became a huge like, just started during that time, and she was able to use that platform to really push these messages, but all of this was done under the guise that, like, she cured herself, so a lot of people going through health issues gravitated towards her app, through to her cookbook, really, like, really looked up to Belle and her platform and everything she was doing. So, flash forward, an investigative journalist was given some information by, like, someone she worked closely with and who was her friend, and it is come to be believed that she never had brain cancer. She
Yeah.
never had any of the things that she said she had in terms of her health, all that was used to promote her app and the cookbook, and she also utilized her platform to raise money for charities,
Yes.
never paid that money towards. So,
Yes.
she last I heard, the Australian court a few years ago fined her like $400,000, but she has yet to pay, but
Yeah.
there's also, I think, some chatter about her eventually being charged for charity fraud.
Yeah, I saw that too. There's a new Netflix series out that actually kind of it's I think it's, like, called The Greatest Instagram Hack of All Time or something, and that it's, like, doing an overview of her, but
Mm,
as because apple cider vinegar is actors, if I'm
yeah.
correct, right? Yeah. So in kind of this other story on Netflix, The Greatest Instagram Hack of All Time is really about Belle Gibson and the whole pantry. And they they interview the friend, and there's like more analysis done on what she did as well. I can't remember. Do you remember how it started? Like how she said she had brain cancer?
From what I know from, like, what I've seen, like, her past interviews, like, in real life and the
Yeah.
show, is she's someone who's always kind of had
Right.
called Munchausen's.
Yes, Munchausen's disease, which
I don't
is
know if
like
she's been diagnosed with
yeah.
that, but she displays a lot of characteristics of that. When she was younger, she faked a heart attack essentially and, like, told everyone she had heart issues, and then, like, I think she's just had a history of compulsive lying when it comes to health,
Mhm,
and, yeah, I think she was going through a tough time in life or something, and
mhm.
I think she's someone who's used her health to get, like, a attention and love from other people, which is in itself a very sad thing to think that you need to do that to be noticed and loved. So, yeah, so I think she did the brain cancer thing, was surrounded by people who didn't know her that
Mhm.
well, and they were able to, like, believe what she told. Also, like, that's such a huge lie. Like, if someone told me they had brain cancer, I wouldn't be like, "Are you sure?" Like,
I know,
about that, right? Like,
I know, which obviously means, like, her friends know she has a history. Munchausen syndrome can show up in 2 ways. It's Munchausen syndrome or Munchausen by proxy, so I wonder about her mom because they do touch on her mom a little bit in some of those episodes, and remember she talks about the launch, and then her mom was gonna come, but then it was, like, a big hassle for her to come, but I just want to explain a little bit about what Munchausen's is just in case our audience is unaware or has never heard of it before. It is actually a mental health disorder where someone fakes or exaggerates illness to get attention, sympathy, or care. So they might lie about symptoms, fake medical tests, or tamper with the results of medical tests, harm themselves to appear sick, or go from doctor to doctor seeking treatment. And then Munchausen syndrome by proxy is essentially the same thing, but you're fabricating or inducing illness in another person. So it's usually like a parent to a child. So a parent will pretend that their child is sick to get attention, emotional gratification, or some sort of like control and manipulate people and situations. I think this one was definitely I can't diagnose her, but this has Munchausen's written all over it, which is really sad because it is a psychiatric disorder.
it's super sad.
Yeah,
It's I think it's one of those things in life where that's, like, an explanation of what maybe caused all this to happen, however, it's not, like, an excuse, right? Like,
exactly.
so, yeah, very sad.
Mhm.
Believe though that, like, it's sad too because I think the product that she had, like the app and the cookbook
Yeah.
on their own, from what I've heard from people, were great.
Yes.
And who knows that whether or not she would have been successful promoting those if it hadn't been for, like, the backstory that she created,
Yeah.
which is interesting to think of. Maybe those would have flopped or that maybe they would have been successful without that, but definitely, like, a really sad story, and also, like, so many people were affected by that story and
Yeah.
encouraged to purchase or subscribe to the things that she was promoting based off of the lies she told.
Yeah, I think that's the most unfortunate part was like this it's almost like she sold hope, like she was selling hope to people who are ill,
Mhm,
and I think when you're, chronically ill or you have a critical illness or a terminal illness, like that's what you're looking for the most is some sort of hope in a tangible way, and I think that's ultimately what she ended up selling to these people by fabricating the story behind why she was doing what she was doing.
mhm.
She's rather than actually and it I looked at the app and the cookbook too, and it was very aesthetic, like, very pleasing, the recipes were very healthy, and I could see how she could draw people in, and that like you said, that maybe that could have been enough on its own, without the fabrication of this story behind the scenes. Or she could have done something like researched it and then, shared research about what she was selling versus really selling fabricated hope to people who needed hope the most.
Yeah, I think where, like, her potential mental health issues came in, made it so that she didn't just want a product or an app to be successful, she wanted people to love her
Yes.
and, like,
Yes.
look up to her. I don't think it was she wanted just to be a successful founder. I think there was a lot of, "I also wanna be the person that people talk about, who
Yes.
look up to, who, like, who they emulate," which very sad.
So
Um,
sad.
but it's just tough to, like, with the chronic illness, I think it's such a challenging thing for anyone to have to deal with, and I think she sold, like, like you said, false hope
Mhm.
that you can control your chronic illness
Mhm.
through, whether it be diet or whatever it is, when, a lot of these chronic illnesses, especially cancer, there's very little that we
You
have
can
control
do.
over as a
Mhm.
human being when you're diagnosed with that. So, I don't know. It's just a lot of, I don't know.
It's heavy.
It's heavy. Yeah.
I know, it is. I think that's why, we wanna talk about these things out loud too, and why we're doing what we're doing at DNA is because, we are grounded in a mission and a vision that will help impact the world in a way that is meaningful, but we're also very realistic and authentic in about what we're sharing and why we're sharing it and how we're presenting and representing the company and the product and the technology itself. I just think it's important for people to know that there's also lots of good entrepreneurs out there doing the right thing. Today we highlighted 3 scenarios that were whether they were a con artist, a founder, an entrepreneur doing the wrong thing for the wrong reasons. We just wanted to demonstrate to that today to show you guys that that is out there and you should always do your due diligence. And I can understand why the investment landscape is a little bit difficult to navigate at times because the due diligence is really important for those investors, even yourself as a customer. Like, just understand what you're getting yourself into and constantly question what you're believing and why, because it could be true, it could not be true, and there's also always another perspective.
Mhm. And I think, like, all these show that instance where, people say if it seems too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah.
So, as much as, where there was, like, Theranos, that idea of, taking one single drop of blood and being able to do a million different blood tests on it, or, you know, a luxury, exciting music festival in the Bahamas, or, someone who went from being, like, stage 4 brain cancer
Mhm.
to eating specific recipes and a specific diet to curing themselves. All of those are things that sound a bit too good to be true. So, whenever you have that gut feeling, I think it's good to, just take a step back and maybe look into some other information, like you said.
Yeah, totally. Okay, thanks for joining us on episode 2. Episode 3, we're gonna talk about hustle culture, Katie's favorite. I can't wait to dig into it. Thanks for listening, everybody. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode, and we will see you next time on Work Sucks and Then You Die because life is too short for bad jobs.